The Battle of Morristown, Missouri, 17th of September, 1861. J. Roberts, a Civil War historian and researcher, has built, along with his wife, this diorama of the event, and he's going to walk us through what happened that day in September.
Well, as you know, there was a major battle that took place at Morristown, at this little town, on the 17th of September, 1861. At that time, the Missouri State Guards were being recruited in this area right here. They were camped. They were called the 10th Missouri Cavalry, and the companies were getting ready in the morning. They were just arising when the battle started.
This was like 6 in the morning?
It was at daybreak.
Daybreak.
At approximately 6 o'clock. So they would have been in their tents until they were alarmed by a sentry coming into town, and he told Colonel Irwin, who was in charge of the regiment at that time, that they were being that the Kansans were on their way. They were coming, and they had many troops. So Colonel Irwin told the men to take refuge on this bluff right below me here, which is, as you can see, was heavily fortified by huge boulders that were natural boulders, and it made a natural defense for the guards at that time. So they were preparing. They had their guns with them, and they were preparing for the raid that was about to occur. Now the next thing that happens is that Colonel Hampton Johnson, leading the Kansans, he was in the cavalry. He was at the head of the Kansas troops at that time. You'll see him coming down the main street of town, being followed by his flag bearer. You could hear "Charge" being trumpeted on the bugle. The infantry was being hauled in on wagons because they didn't have any horses, so they were being dropped off at the edge of town. Captain Moonlight, at that time in charge of the 1st Kansas Battery artillery, posted his mountain howitzer up there on Church Street, which is the cross street up there, probably the highest point in Morristown. And the artillery, or the infantry, was sent around down Church Street, and they were told to skirt around the north side of the camp and kind of take them by surprise. Well, by that time, all the of Irwin's men had taken refuge in in the saloon, behind rocks, in trees, around trees, behind trees, in the mill, and they were just waiting for the command to fire. Well, as soon as Colonel Johnson got to the edge of town, he had given the command to open fire on all these tents because he thought the men were still in them. So the infantry and the cavalry were firing away at these tents. He charges on through town, and when Colonel Irwin gave the command, there was a barrage from all the Missouri State Guardsmen. They were just waiting. And of course, Hampton Johnson was right in front, and he got the brunt of that first barrage. He got 9 wounds, and any one of them could have been fatal. He died almost instantly. He had a bugler next to him who got shot in the leg with a shotgun blast. Another man got shot in the neck. There were 2 men that died that day from the Kansans, J.M. Copeland and the colonel. Now this battle waged on after taking the Union by surprise, basically. They skirted around and fired for a couple of hours, actually getting the worst of the battle. So they picked up their dead and wounded and retreated to regroup. And as they did, Colonel Irwin took his Confederates, and they were led out of the Grand River. They were led out of Morristown by following the channel of the Grand River, and eventually escaped into Harrisonville. Now, when the Kansans came back, they were Colonel Montgomery was in charge, and he found out that the Confederates were mostly gone except for the few that were captured, and he gave the order to, before he left, to confiscate all the tents, the horses, the wagons, and take the prisoners out of town. And they eventually left. But before they left, they lit the major portion of the town on fire.
How many did the southern side lose?
The southern side, according to records, lost 7 men. Although I can only find records of 5. And they were taken out west of town. When Montgomery left, they were taken west of town and forced to dig their own graves and were summarily executed. And there were 4 or 5 men that were wounded, but not too severely, except for one. His name was William Guthrie. His father owned the general store in town.
What happened to Morristown for the rest of the war? This was early in 1861 that this happened, so what was the story of the rest of the war in Morristown?
Well, Morristown by that time was pretty devastated. They left the hotel standing, I think primarily for later use. They did come back after the guards had left and went south with Price. They came prior to December of that same year and established a camp at Morristown and called it Camp Johnson in honor of the colonel that died there in Morristown.
Well, we really appreciate you for your study and history of this, and especially for the diorama of it. And again, if anybody's interested in seeing this, hearing it, it's going to be an audio tour of it along with the diorama. They can visit it here in Harrisonville in the library building at 400 East Mechanic. Thanks a lot, Jay.
Okay, thank you.